This is Healthy Souls with Father Nicholas Lowe, helping you to live a Christ-filled life in today's world. Father Nicholas is the pastor of St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, Florida.
Good morning. It's good to see all of you this morning here worshiping and celebrating our divine liturgy. We are grateful that you have chosen to be here, that St. John the Divine is your spiritual home, and that you're here with us worshiping. We're grateful to that. And to those that are watching us live, whether it be on our St. John the Divine app or on our website, you are part of the multimedia St. John the Divine family, and we're grateful that you too are joining with us. And if you're downloading this week's message, if you find it beneficial to you, chances are that it's going to also impact your circle of friends, your circle of influence. So we encourage you, when you watch it, please, on the bottom of that of the social media page, push the share button and share with all of your friends and family, and to you as well. Every week we send out our sermons via email. If you find them beneficial, please do your part in spreading the good news of Christ. Simply click share or reply to those to your friends and to your family. And if you happen to be new, if you're visiting our church for the very first time today, I want you to know how grateful we are that you're here worshiping with us. Downstairs, there's an entire table dedicated just to you, an area of our hall that's there so that you can kind of get to know about the ministries and the programs of St. John the Divine. Before I go into my sermon this morning, I wanted to just kind of highlight a great new ministry that I can use your help in advertising and sharing, and that is our Early Learning Center. We are opening up an Early Learning Center that you will see in just a few months, by the way, when we open the doors and allow you to have first kind of viewing of our new church. This Early Learning Center is a state-of-the-art Early Learning Center. This is not a daycare. It is an Early Learning Center that is a Christ-centered daycare, or an Early Learning Center, and we have it centered around what we call the 4 C's. It is that it is a Christ-centered school, that it is a strong curriculum. The curriculum itself develops the fine motor skills, almost every aspect of developing of the whole child, not just one aspect of them. It also develops their character. As you all know, the ages from infancy to 5 years old, to be honest with you, is an area that has the most impressionable time for children. It is during those years that you develop the character of a child. Waiting till later to do that has some influence, but not nearly as that 0 to 5 years old. And so we're hoping to help build their character, and finally to help and develop their connection with other children. How to share, how to talk, how to communicate, all of those things. So if you are a parent of a young child, I encourage you, visit our website at stjohnthedivineelc.com, and then also make sure that you share it with your friends and your family. This is something that you will be very, very proud about. I promise you, we've spent a great deal of time developing this Early Learning Center. So with that being said, let me dive right into our message. And you know that for the last 3 weeks, we've been on a sermon series that's all about relationships. And it's been titled, A Love That Lasts. And this is the final one. And after every one, or before every one of these sermons, I always share with you just some ground rules that I want you to remember as I'm giving you this message. And the first ground rule is that whatever I'm telling you, don't try to kick your spouse or a friend or try to nudge someone that's in your life about this message. Let the words that I'm sharing with you be like seeds that you hear first. Take it in yourself and apply it first to yourself. And number 2, the second ground rule that we made was that, check this out everyone, make eye contact with me. It's an uncomfortable eye contact, but look at me, okay? Your relationships, all of them, can be better. We can all be better in our relationships. Those were the 2 ground rules, so let's get started. So today I want to finalize this sermon series by talking to you about truly how do we have lasting love. God has created from the very beginning relationships. He loves relationships. He has blessed us with our children. He has gifted us with our spouse. He has graced us with great friends, graced us with a great church. God is constantly blessing us with relationships. He yearns for us to have a relationship. And His purpose in that relationship is that we would love each other constantly, that we would learn from each other constantly, that we would laugh with each other constantly. God has a purpose and a plan for every one of your relationships. But just like God has that purpose for your relationship, can I be so bold as to tell you that the devil has a purpose for your children? He has a purpose for your wife, your husband, your friends. What does that look like? In the trophy case of the devil, this is what it looks like. It's not a big issue, it's small things that kind of lead to a bigger issue. It's a status quo marriage. Oh, Father Nick, it's those back in those days back then, those over there, that was the good old days. It is a relationship that's simply in survival mode. We're just simply getting day by day through that relationship, just kind of going through it. It is a relationship that constantly thinks this is as good as it's going to get. If your relationship looks anything like that, can I just tell you, he's about ready to give you your reward, his trophy in an unsuccessful relationship. And what you should know is that in every relationship that you're in, with a parent, with a friend, with your spouse, there's 3 stages. The first is the honeymoon stage. The honeymoon stage literally means sweet month. The word moon is put in there because there are 29 days for a full lunar calendar. So there's this sweet month of where, oh, I'm just in love, and you look at that person and you pull a Tom Cruise and say, you complete, finish it for me everyone, me. That's that honeymoon phase where you're just dancing in the clouds. And then from that phase, we shift very quickly to the honeymoon to the disillusionment phase. And the disillusionment phase literally means that I thought I was getting something, and it's totally different than what I have right next to me that I'm sleeping next to every single night. What I thought and what I have are 2 polar parallels that I'm dealing with. And it is during that phase, the disillusionment, that most relationships never make it past. 35 to 50% of relationships right now are in the disillusionment phase. Most divorces take place because of the disillusionment phase. I thought, it wasn't. And one of the things that oftentimes people fall into the trap of in that disillusionment phase is believing an illusion that the grass is greener outside of this relationship. That if I just left that friend or just left that relationship, things would be better. It's a illusion that oftentimes many of us follow. And then number 3, that third phase, that third stage that all relationships go through, if they're survival enough and if they're truly working towards a healthy relationship, is what they call the commitment stage. Honeymoon, disillusionment, and then the commitment that I'm going to commit to being with that person. And again, in that commitment stage, people during that time oftentimes are just simply in that survival mode. So here's the takeaway today. In order for a relationship to work, look at me, church family, it requires work. In order for your relationship to work, it requires work. Nothing ever stays the same. And we've got to get to the point in our walk of faith to remember that we have to allow the God who designed relationships, that has a purpose for our relationships, we've got to let that God who designed them define every part of our relationships. I love this morning's gospel lesson. This is one of those gospel lessons that if you're listening to it and if this is a first Sunday that you've ever heard the Bible, this is like a harsh kind of reminder of what God's expectations are in all of us. It's called the Judgment Sunday gospel reading. And if you read it, go back home, it's in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 25, where Christ talks to all of us and he says, this is the litany of the questions I'm going to ask you when you are standing before me, not too long from now, when you're standing before me. And he says, this whole litany of questions, I was hungry, did you feed me? I was thirsty, did you give me a drink? I was homeless, I didn't have anywhere to lay my head, and you didn't give me a place. And he is bold when he says, be away from me. Be away from me, because to the least that you did it to, you did it to me. I want to take that one step further and apply it into our relationships. Can I tell you that there is a wife in this church right now that is hungry for her child to tell her, thank you, I love you. There is a wife maybe in here that is thirsty for her husband to say, I love you and I appreciate you. Now there's a husband here that feels that he's imprisoned because his wife is always complaining about him and never complimenting him? Can I be so bold that there are some children here that are imprisoned, feeling the pressures of a world and not knowing who has the key to release them from it? There are people in your lives, your relationships, that are in need to be hungry, be fed, that need to be fed with something to drink, that there are people that need to have the key to unlock their prison cell, and you are that person. And I love how Christ tells all of us, he says, you know what I want you to do with your relationship? I want you to treat your wife the way I treated you. I want you to treat your children the way I treated you. Your husband, that coworker, treat them the way I treated you. And as much as you did to the least person, you did it to me. And some of us journey in our life treating our boss better than our wife. Sometimes we can go in this world and treat our work and put more time into work than we do in our family. No, God has a purpose, but the devil also has a plan for your life. So how do we do that? How do we have a love that lasts? Let me give you 3 things, and they're in your worship guide, so I encourage you, take out your worship guide and take notes if it helps you. There's 3 promises that I want all of us to make. Here's number 1. And can you say this with me? I promise. Say it again. I promise that I will love you always. Love is not a feeling. It is a choice. Yes, it has feelings attached to it, but it is a choice that you make. When God got up on that cross, he wasn't saying, well, I just feel good. Let me just have nails put through my skin and a crown of thorns on my head. It was a daily choice that he made before that he was going to get on that cross. I love in the book of Colossians, St. Paul, who writes 2/3 of the New Testament, says this, above every virtue you can have, put on love. Put on love. Break it down, Father Nick. Okay, let me break this down for you. What does that love look like? It means that I love God first. You will never, husbands, listen, you will never love your wife the way she deserves to be loved if you're not first connected to Him. You will never be able to connect to her if you're not connected to Him, Christ first. Yes, you'll do okay. You'll get a C probably. You'll survive, but you'll never love her the way God wanted you to love her. Husbands, God's calling you to love your wife better. Wives, the same thing. You can't connect to Him if you're not connected first to Him. What does that look like? I'm praying, God. I'm connecting to you every day. I'm reading my Bible. I'm putting you first in my life. If you want to go to the next step in your relationships, ask yourself, how much do I love God and how much am I showing it? Because by the way that you show it and live it will be how well you love your spouse. That you would overlook her mistakes and his mistakes. Some of us are keeping great records of our spouse's mistakes and the problems that they have made. Some of you can keep better records of your child's wrongs or your coworker's mistakes, or better yet, your wife's mistakes or husband's mistakes, better than God does. And who are we to hold a grudge when Christ never held a grudge on you and me? I've got to overlook those mistakes, and I would also say that we also have to persevere against anything that happens against us. I want to be open and honest with all of you. I come out here and give a sermon sometimes on almost every Sunday morning, and people oftentimes say that, Father Nick, you're always smiling, you're always happy. I love being a priest. It's one of the greatest things. I only wish I would have gotten ordained, to be quite honest with you, earlier. That's how much I love it. But being a priest is not easy, church family. You see the smiles, you see all the excitement of a new church, but all of that comes at a cost. Nothing that we do is easy. It requires work. I was finishing this sermon at 2 this morning. It requires a level of work. And at times, I will tell you, especially early on in my marriage, it came at a cost to my own family. And can I tell you that sometimes early on in our relationship, there were disagreements, that you're loving the church more than you're loving your first church. And you have to know, and I know this, that the devil would love to take down Father Nick and Roxanne. Because if he can take the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. And so I'm always saying with Roxanne, and she will tell you this, we hold each other's hands all the time and say, look, we're going to buckle up. We're in this relationship, and we are in it to win it. And our relationship stays strong because we put God at the center of it. Not because there's no temptations or no problems that we may face. No, we know that the devil wants to seek to destroy this relationship. And I know that you have to also be persevering. The God that brought your relationships together with your child, your wife, your husband, let that God always know that He's first in your life. So number 2, I promise to love you always. Number 2 would be, I promise to have some fun. Gosh, if I hear more people that come into my church, into my office, that are having marriage problems, it's because of this. That they've lost the ability to simply have fun with each other. The Bible says laughter is good medicine. And how many relationships with your friends, oh, he's just so boring. Or a spouse, we just do the same old thing over and over again. That is someone telling you, we need some fun. We need some laughter. And let me let you into our lives a little bit. What you don't know about Roxanne, many of you don't, is that she's got a sense of humor. She makes me laugh in ways that you just have no idea. In fact, I'm going to put her on the spot now, and we'll be sleeping on the couch again today. But at every church, downstairs in our church hall today, we will make eye contact. She'll be at one end and I'll be at the other. We just simply make eye contact with each other. And we have created a language. We will not tell you that language, but it is totally nonverbal. It's just me and her looking at each other, and we communicate and we are laughing. So sometimes I'll be in a conversation with someone who is saying something very serious, and out of nowhere, I just simply start laughing. And they're saying, well, that wasn't that funny, Father Nick. I'm like, I'm so sorry, something just caught my eye. But my point is that we're constantly laughing. And sometimes she has a laugh that's a belly laugh. I mean, when she starts laughing, she makes me laugh. Even if the joke is not funny, we just laugh. What's my point? When was the last time you had a great belly laugh with a friend? Your spouse, just a coworker, just something to have fun with. No, have fun. I promise to have fun in my relationships. Maybe for you husbands, you just simply write a little letter to your wife and say, you know what, remember when we were at this and a funny time? Or to your wife, same thing to your husband, just a funny little story that took place. Or you parents, or tell your children, just remember those funny times. And finally, number 3 is I promise to keep God at the center of this home. Listen to me, church family. No matter all the stuff that I'm giving to you, all this fun stuff and happy stuff, if you don't have God at the center of your marriage, you can try, but you will not succeed. The Bible says this, and I want to speak it to you. Unless the Lord builds your house, you will labor in vain. Unless the Lord builds that relationship with your coworker, your friend, your child, you could do all the work you want. You could buy a dozen flowers every day, but you're going to labor in vain because He's got to be at the center of that relationship. I leave you with this. This morning when I was finishing up this sermon, I was just thinking to myself, what would I want to share with you as we close out this sermon? What would be some lasting comments? And what would be my dream? My dream for all of you would be that you would leave church today. You'd get in your car, and you, the husband, would lead this way. That you would look over at your wife, and you would say, and you'd grab her hand, and you'd say, honey, I can do better. And I'm going to do better. And that you, the wife, would look over at your husband, and you would say, you know what? I can do better. And I promise to do better. And that you children would go to your moms or your dads. I can do better, and I promise to do better. That you, the parents, would look at your children and say, you know what? I can do better. I promise to do better. And I'm encouraging all of you, make some promises today. Promise to love forever. Promise to have some fun. And promise that the Lord is at the center of your home. If you want that relationship to work, listen to me. it's going to take some work.
We invite you to join Father Nick and his wife, Dr. Roxanne Lowe, on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month for their Healthy Minds, Healthy Souls call-in show at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Ancient Faith Talk.